Peach Pundit, the podcast, is a conversation filled with the personal opinions of the people who are participating. Any view or opinion expressed belongs only to the person who expressed it and not with anyone with whom that person is professionally affiliated. We are fresh off of Thanksgiving, heading into Christmas, and we are here. And so are you, and that makes us grateful for you being here. My name is Scott Turner. That is Buzz Brockway. We are Peach Pundit, the podcast. Buzz, how the heck are you, brother?
I'm doing well, man. How you doing?
You're always
doing well. Did you have a happy
well.
Thanksgiving?
I did. There's a media influencer I met at a Georgia Republican convention a couple years ago named Hannah Dasher. And she's like a country star, and she does these Instagram videos that are sometimes hilarious. She's also a singer, but she also does these cooking videos where she makes this chocolate bourbon pecan pie.
Mm-hmm.
And because you are who you are and I am who I am, you'll appreciate this. I took the Lord's name in vain no less than 3 times having one slice of that pie. So good. So good. Look up Hannah Dasher. She's funny anyway. You'll enjoy her. The Peach Pundit crowd will definitely enjoy themselves some Hannah Dasher on Instagram. But how was yours?
It was really good. Spent time with family. Got really nervous about the Tech Georgia football game and sweated my way through that. Another tight one that the Dogs prevailed again.
How does that make you feel when your rival is just consistently hurting your feelings?
I think over the years, you obviously want to win it, but the expectations, at least for me, the expectations are always so low. And especially the way our defense had been playing, I was worried. I said, man, these guys are going to put 70 points on us.
Yeah, and there wasn't much
thankfully,
defense
they only scored 16, and we only scored 9. But but look, contrary to there were all these people saying, "Oh, what a boring game." I thought it was a great game because it was tight the whole way, and just one play would have blown the thing wide open, and it didn't happen, and it was just tight the whole way. Both defenses were just locked in, and a lot of Tech fans were like, "Where was that defense all year? We would have been playing for the ACC championship if that defense had shown up against Pitt." But hey,
well.
Anyway.
College football is nothing but heartbreak for me these days. Although I will say, my alma mater tonight will be playing for the Conference USA Championship
That's
game.
Right.
Hootie hoo, go
right.
Owls.
That's awesome.
Under our first year, under our new coach, and I met that coach at a basketball game, I think back in February. I don't know if you've ever been to a Kennesaw State basketball game, but they're fun. Sometimes they're on ESPN. I think we were on ESPN, as a matter of fact, that game. And I met the coach and our new quarterback at that game. Mm-hmm. And I told him, I'm like, look, I'm just really excited that it's anybody that's willing to do something different than the triple option. I'm just excited you're here, brother. Like, all due respect to Coach Bohannon. He started the program and had some great years. But, I mean,
yeah,
it's hard to watch.
But hey, option. I mean, look, second year at Division I, and you're playing for the Conference USA Championship.
Yeah. When NCAA football came back to video games, they had us the lowest rated team. It was
135th out of 135 or something like that.
133 out of 133. And if you wanted the biggest challenge, you were Kennesaw State and the NCAA football video game when you're doing your dynasty program. And it became a badge of honor if you're able to do that at the highest level of difficulty, because it was hard to play the game as Kennesaw State. Maybe this year we'll get a higher ranking.
Yes.
But Go Owls, as of the recording of this, the game has not been played, but you know what I'll be doing this evening? I'll be watching that game and my black and gold, yelling hootie hoo, and maybe some expletives along the way. But on tonight's show, we have a pretty good agenda. We're going to talk about vigilantism for clicks and how it caught a Georgia Republican Party official. Sadly, we're going to talk about that. We're also going to discuss This book right here, I'm holding up for our folks on YouTube, for those who are listening on something other than YouTube. It's Citizen Legislator, an insider account of pathological politics in the Peach State by former state representative Jason Spencer, available on Amazon and Kindle. Buzz and I have both read every page of the book. We were probably among the first to buy it and finish it, but I guarantee we will not be the last.
If you're out there, Jason, and you have 2 sales, you know who they are.
You have more than 2 sales. We know that because a lot of the folks in our
we know
Patreon signal chat told us, don't ruin it for us. We're reading it right now. So
you're welcome, Jason.
You're welcome. We're pumping your book. And also, man, we're going to get into it. I don't want to spoil the conversation, but I can't wait till we get to this part of the podcast. But we also have to talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I know she's dominated previous podcasts. And believe it or not, even though she's resigning, we're not going to make that segment really about her. But what happens next? We had this non-scientific poll that got shared around that caused some headlines. Even the president shared it. Interesting little development. I don't know if we're going to read too much into this. We probably are. We're going to wildly speculate about why Brian Kemp is giving Chris Carr hat tips on social media. Pete Skandalakis is now the hero of David Schaefer and many others. Trump has subsequently pardoned a whole bunch of people in Georgia related to the Fani Willis case, and anything else that I might be missing. I don't know. We'll get into it.
I'm sure we can come up with something else.
I'm sure we'll come up with something right after this.
Peach Pundit has an anonymous Patreon who would like to invite you to learn more about the Alzheimer's Association. The Alzheimer's Association leads the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction and early detection, and maximizing quality care and support. No one should fight Alzheimer's alone. With your help, no one will. Learn more on their website, alz.org.
Americans for Prosperity Georgia champions economic freedom and individual liberty across our state. They advocate for lower taxes, less government spending, and regulatory reform while mobilizing citizens to engage in the legislative process. Beyond just economic issues, AFP Georgia is committed to more choice in K-12 education for all students and removing government barriers in healthcare, like Certificate of Need. Thank you to our friends at Americans for Prosperity for being a Patreon. They are partner-level Patreon. If you want to join at a much lower level, you can head on over to patreon.com/peachpundit. Sign up for one of our tiers. They start at just $5. We do have a pretty rocking signal chat that every single one of our paying Patreons are allowed to join. And today I kept looking at my phone and there are 17 notifications at a time.
So you check more often than I do. And I come back and it's like 85. I'm like, oh.
Like, how do you keep up?
Oh,
I need you to check a little more often. I mean, keep it to under 20 if you can, Buzz, because you're part of the draw. People want to interact with you as much as they do each other. But I don't, if you and I just left it, they would continue on.
Yeah. They wouldn't even, I don't think they'd even notice. They'd just
I don't
keep
know
on
that they would.
chatting.
You know? And oftentimes all I'm doing is cracking a joke about something somebody else said.
Right.
But, or asking them a question that ends up in a rabbit hole. But anyway, if you want to be part of that discussion, you can be. Just patreon.com/peachpundit. Any one of those tiers will get you in. Oh, Buzz. Geez. We had this case pop up right after you and I stopped recording. It wasn't maybe a day or two after. We didn't record the week of Thanksgiving, but there's a young man. He's 19 years old. His name is Jaquan Stembridge, and he was a young African-American man. He's 19, an overachiever, heavily involved in the Republican Party. He actually ran for second assistant secretary of the party, or assistant secretary. I don't know.
Assistant secretary
of the party, and he won. His two opposition members of the opposition was it Carolyn Jeffords?
I think so.
And Kylie Kramer.
Yes.
And Ms. Jeffords had withdrawn her name from consideration before the first ballot was cast, which put him on a head-to-head race with Kylie Kramer. Now, Kylie Kramer is, she's Kylie Kramer. The daughter of
Yeah,
Amy Kramer.
she's the daughter of the
Yes.
daughter of Amy Kramer, the national committee woman for the GOP.
Right.
And they're both, shall we say, kind of engage in full contact politics. Maybe.
Oh yeah.
Maybe a good way to describe it.
And the way I'm going to put this is not a slight towards Mr. Stembridge, but every vote for Mr. Stembridge was not necessarily a vote for Mr. Stembridge. It was really a vote.
Yeah.
There are a lot of votes.
But I will say, I wasn't
Tyler
at the
Kramer.
convention. I wasn't at the convention, obviously, but I observed all this. Seemed like a personable young guy, pretty good on social media. He made it easy for folks who might have been reluctant to vote for Ms. Kramer to vote for him. He made it easy on them.
Right. He absolutely did. And also the adage, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar, seems to apply here. Now,
yes.
I just put that in some context because the news broke. And before I even get into the news, I want to be very careful here to point out that here at Peach Pundit, we recognize that two things can be true at the same time, often.
Mm-hmm.
And just because we're going to talk about both aspects that I think are important about this case, doesn't mean that we're excusing the behavior of anybody.
Right.
Okay. Do you understand, audience? Well, good. Now that we've got that disclaimer out of the way, this is what happens. Mr. Stembridge was caught in a Chris Hansen-like catch the predator sting by a group of vigilantes out in the Athens area. He is 19 years old. Apparently, he was enticed to show up at an apartment complex in the Athens area with promises of sex with a allegedly 14-year-old boy. This is outside of the Romeo and Juliet scenario that we have in Georgia. Once you become 19, you're pretty much, there is no access to anybody underage. So these folks put him on camera and began to badger him about how old he was. At first, he said he was 17, and he's young enough that he sort of looks that way, and he refused to show his ID. These folks are not in law enforcement. They had only recently begun to do these vigilante, non-law enforcement endorsed stings in an effort to catch predators that they felt like were being ignored by law enforcement. The video then goes viral.
There is go ahead. Finish that. And there's a little more context about who these folks are.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get into that. But the video goes viral. I got a text message, and here's I have disconnected myself from Georgia Republican Party politics, not from Republican partisan politics, but from party politics. I could not tell you who the secretaries, who the treasurers are of the party. I can tell you who the chairman is, but beyond that, I can't really tell you anybody else because I have checked out of the actual party structure politics when these people began to run their races against each other. And largely because of two things. One, I no longer really feel welcome, especially in light of the fact that the chairman and I have had a falling out, and he has used party resources to prevent us from trying to be successful in court, repealing Georgia's version of Chevron deference. And we don't talk much these days. That being said, it was somebody texted me and said, have you seen this? And I said, is that, I thought, did CJ Pearson grow out his hair? Is my first, and that was my first, who is that CJ Pearson? And they're like, no, that's Jaquan. And I was like, who's Jaquan? So it's how connected I am to the Republican Party these days. But it went viral. Very shortly thereafter, Mr. Stembridge decides to resign his position, and the chairman issued a statement saying his resignation was accepted. So now I will throw it to you, Buzz. You can give us some more detail with some of the things.
Just one. There's a story in the AJC. Let me see who wrote it. Greg Bluestein wrote it, but he points out that these vigilantes. It's a guy led by a guy named Angelus Pieria, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But he had one of his 5 children was sexually assaulted,
Right.
And so he's in Athens trying to, in his mind, bring justice to, as you mentioned, Scott, people who perhaps law enforcement and the prosecutors out there are missing.
Right.
So he's motivated by that, from a sense of justice to make sure no other child has to go through what his child went through.
Right. In popular culture, Batman is a vigilante, right? And we lionize, we
sure
establish that Batman's one of the good guys. He's a
Right.
hero, right?
The whole superhero genre that's so popular in movies, all of those people operate outside of the law.
Exactly. Here in the real world, however,
Yes.
Batman would be arrested and thrown
Hard
in
to
jail
do that. You can't really do that.
because you can't beat up bad guys, right?
Yes.
Right. Here's the problem.
Yes.
Again, I'm not. Two things can be true at the same time, and we'll get to Mr. Stembridge in a second.
Yes.
Because
Yep.
we have to talk about Mr. Stembridge too. But vigilantism is wrong.
Yep.
Somebody's going to get hurt. And you're making it harder to prosecute the cases because you don't have any authority to be doing what you're doing.
Right.
It may be a noble goal. You're completely justified to feel like law enforcement's not doing enough. They need more tools. There are ways for us to deal with that as a society that don't involve you creating these private stings, putting yourself and other people in danger.
Well, let me, by example, Scott, let me contrast that with, there's an organization called Street Grace, which is fights human. They raise money and they fight and lobby against human trafficking. Right. They have built a technology that helps them collect information from would-be sex traffickers and men who want to purchase underage sex. They work in hand with law enforcement, and they have trained their system to know when they collect the information that law enforcement needs, they immediately turn it over to law enforcement. So they as best as they can, they avoid the kinds of things that you're talking about. The problems that might arise from this, obviously, was Mr. Stembridge entrapped here?
Right.
That is, we don't know, but that certainly puts into, and the reliability of this evidence, and would any of this be admissible in court? Who knows? I mean, there's not even a court case yet.
Right. And there's not likely
maybe
to be one.
And maybe
At this point, my understanding is that there are no charges pending, that there's not even really an investigation happening, because the police look at this type of stuff and they realize that citizen stings can jeopardize investigations.
Yeah. And so what are we going to do with this?
They automatically create entrapment type defenses. They risk misidentifying people. They could potentially libel, defame, and damage people's reputations. And they raise safety concerns, both for the targets and the vigilantes themselves. And here's the thing, Mr. Pieria is not from here. He's from California. Let me introduce you to the concept of constitutional carry, Mr. Pieria. If somebody is willing to break the law and do something like that, they're probably lawfully carrying a gun too.
Who else? Yeah. Who else?
And you may be carrying a gun as well, but all that's doing is setting up a recipe where there's going to be violence and injury, if not death. Yeah. And you're not the officer. You're not a cop. And for anybody else who's doing this, it appears to me that beyond his child being molested, the way that he's approached this afterwards is he's doing it for clicks.
Yeah.
He's doing it for social. He's a social media influencer, and this is his path to greater attention. And when you give a social media influencer attention, they make money.
Yep.
That's the truth.
There's better ways to go about, if he wants to protect children, there's better ways to go about it.
You can team up with law enforcement, but you shouldn't be doing things outside of anything blessed by law enforcement, because if you do catch somebody, they may not even be able to prosecute them. So you have to be working with the cops if you're going to do something like this. And they're going to put a lot of guardrails around you if you do. So my advice to Mr. Pieria would be, what you've done here, make it the last time and adjust how you're doing it. No, I'm not telling you to stop. I'm telling you to go work with cops. Because you or somebody else is going to end up getting killed. And that's just the truth. That's not me making a threat. I'm just trying to keep somebody from getting killed
No.
over something that is clearly a recipe for violence.
Putting himself in highly volatile situations.
Now, here's the other half of two things can be true. Mr.
Yes.
Stembridge was a moron. He's an
Yes.
idiot. He should never been in that position to
And
begin with.
maybe well, I don't even want to say it. I
No,
think folks can draw judging by the age of who he thought he was coming to meet. Folks can
draw
folks
your
know
own
what's going on.
conclusions.
That's bad. Very, very bad. He needs help.
Yeah. Now,
Stembridge needs help.
He needs help. There needs to be an intervention. There needs to be a fatherly figure, put their arm around him and guide him through that. I know some folks who are trying to do that. Ron Daniels is his attorney.
Mm-hmm.
That's on public record. You may recognize Ron Daniels' name. He's on our Patreon list.
Good dude.
A fantastic attorney and a great human being. I'm hopeful that somebody like Ron can put their arm around Jaquan Stembridge and say, look, we got to get your life together. You can't be doing this type of stuff. This is the last time this ever happens. And also, by the way, let's make sure you have the tools and resources that this doesn't happen to you again.
Yep.
I am also, you made this point, Buzz, about how Mr. Stembridge reacted versus how he could have. And I think that's an important one for you to make here.
Yeah. I mean, look, in this age where nobody ever admits that they're wrong, and he hasn't made a statement, as far as I know, admitting wrongdoing of any type. But however, he immediately resigned. And maybe he was told to resign or suggested he resign. That might have happened, but he did. Right. He didn't hold a press conference and say, my enemies are out to get me. This is a left-wing plot to destroy a rising young Republican, and I won't stand for it. He didn't start a fundraising campaign to raise, legal defense money. None of that stuff. He just shame kicked in and he left.
Right.
And man, of all the weird things, what a refreshing thing to happen in today's politics.
He didn't put the chairman of the Republican Party of Georgia in a position where he had to issue a statement saying Jaquan Stembridge doesn't speak for the party.
Yes. Or force a vote to remove him like another podcaster in this state did.
Right. So, two things can be true. Vigilantism can be wrong, and Jaquan Stembridge was an idiot.
Yep.
Anything else we need to say about that?
Get some help, Mr. Stembridge.
Yeah.
Get some help.
I doubt he's listening,
Please.
But if he is, I hope he does get the help that he needs.
Yep.
We've been telling you for a year and a half, 2 years now, that Marjorie Taylor Greene was just moments away from donning a pink knitted hat and becoming a full-blooded member of Code Pink. And when we were discussing her at length the last two podcasts, she decided in the meantime to just go ahead and resign from Congress, effective January 6th, 2026. I had so many mixed feelings.
January 5th, right?
January 5th? Is it 5th? I thought, okay.
Yeah.
January
it's
5th.
The day before the anniversary of...
I thought it was the actual... Anyway.
That blessed day.
It's interesting that she picked that day for a lot of different reasons, but it doesn't really matter to me. She's going to no longer be in Congress. That opens up the Pandora's box for two questions. One is, what is she going to do next? But also, who's going to run to replace her in the 14th? So this segment's not really about Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's about who's going to be the next congressman for the 14th. And you found some pretty cool resources about this too, Buzz.
Yeah, there's a website I've looked at over the years, politics1.com. They just collect all kind of information. So I think I lost count. What did I say? Like 20 something?
It's a lot.
They have over 20 something people listed as candidates and potential candidates and rumored candidates. And they include names that Jason Advitardi, the senator, is among those. Who we got here? We got, where is he? Colton Moore, obviously, is rumored to be a candidate. Matt Sawhill, who's a Republican, of long standing in the district, has already said he will not run. But there's a whole bunch of people who are running, Scott. I mean, already got websites set up and the whole 9 yards. Maybe my favorite name here is a young gentleman named Elvis Castley, a Republican Elvis. I mean, that's, hey.
A Republican Elvis who's an actor, yes.
actor and a salesman. He's got us a website already. And see, John Cowan, who's a gentleman who's run in the past,
Yep.
Is a potential candidate.
Actually lost in a runoff to Marjorie Taylor Greene, if I recall.
Yes. A guy named Jeff Criswell, who I was scared that was the reality TV. What's the Criswells or something? Isn't there some reality TV show? They all went to jail and then Trump pardoned them all. But it's a different guy. So thankfully,
Jeff
it's not
Criswell has been actually running already. He was going to primary Marjorie Taylor Greene because she's soft on Muslims. Apparently, if you read any of his social media, it's all about Islam and Muslims and racist stuff. So I don't think Jeff Criswell ever had a chance, not even a puncher's chance from the get.
No, not a lot of room on the right, to running to Marjorie Taylor Greene's right. Not a lot of room there.
No, not
really.
They
also have Chuck Payne as listed. They're the current senator. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I haven't talked to the senator. Good dude. I don't know if he'll run or not.
I don't feel like Chuck's going to run.
No.
It's just my feeling.
One name that is not on this list that I've heard bandied about, that I think it was listed in the AJC, I guess?
It was in the AJC. Candidate. Yes, it was.
Our friend,
the Velvet Hammer, Katie Dempsey.
The Velvet Hammer, Katie Dempsey. Yep.
Katie Dempsey, a longtime state rep who is more towards the middle than on the right, and is the type of person that when you're around her, it's hard to tell her no because she's just so incredibly sweet.
Lovely person. I don't know. She's another one. I don't know if she'd run. She's had opportunities to run before. She's well liked in her district, no doubt about Rome. If she wanted to run, she could raise a lot of money. She absolutely could. But
she also serves as the chairman of the Republican Leadership for Georgia program, which automatically gives you access to a statewide network of not only donors, but activists and people who do things like knock on doors and make phone calls.
And she's a longtime co-chair or vice chair of one of the appropriations subcommittees. So the House Republican caucus would likely be behind her if she ran.
Especially if it's Colton Moore who also jumps in.
Yes. And I don't doubt for a second that people are trying to recruit her to run.
Right.
I'd be surprised if she did. That's just, I have not talked to her. That's just my gut reaction is I don't think she would. She's a Georgia girl, a Rome girl. I don't know that she'd run for Congress.
Well,
but never know.
Here's the real takeaway for me is it's going to be a 2.5, 3 month campaign at best, right? And maybe the campaign really has already started because you've got all of these candidates coming out of the woodwork to put their name in the hat. However, until qualifying opens and closes, we don't know who's actually going to be the list of candidates. And some of these candidates that have already declared may realize I have no path. I'm wasting my time, energy, and money. So I don't. And that qualifying fee for Congress is significantly higher.
Yes.
Than running for state legislature. So it's in the thousands of dollars, not hundreds like it is to run for the legislature. So I don't know who will.
But I will
tell you, I guarantee you, I guarantee you that Colton Moore is going to be a candidate.
Yeah, he's running. And there's going to you run for to fill the rest of MTG's term, and you run next fall,
right,
for re-election.
So you basically you're going to have your qualifying and your election day about the same week,
right? And you can be sure that some of these folks that people are going to this list of candidates. Whoever ends up running are going to sign up for both,
right?
So you're going to have two primaries against featuring mostly the same crowd of folks,
right?
It's going to be wild.
And I think this is an opportunity for the people of 14th District to have somebody who is conservative, who definitely represents their values, but without the crazy.
Yeah.
That is not Colton Moore. It's just not. Colton Moore is a showman. He's not a serious policy-minded person. He is not a conservative. He's a populist. He doesn't think for himself. He gets everything fed to him from his little side caucus project that they have. He's told how to vote, and he votes the way that they tell him to. He's not an independent thinker, and he's not somebody who will dive deep into the policy and explain to you why different provisions are either conservative, progressive, or otherwise.
Right.
You have an opportunity to find somebody that can do that, though.
Yes.
And I hope that they do.
Don't just vote for the candidate who fights. Vote for the candidate who fights and can win.
Yes.
And that win their fights. That's what you need. Not just somebody who fights.
Right.
Colton Moore fights and flops and is unsuccessful.
Yes.
And can't get a bill passed because he's burned every bridge.
He did get a bill
within
passed.
sight.
He did get a bill passed. I don't know why the House, I think it was really the House is trying to bury the whole flopping incident, saying, look, we're not going to punish him forever. It was just a little while. I don't know. But
yeah,
I guarantee you, if during my tenure, he would never have been allowed to pass a bill under the old regime. This new regime's far more merciful than the old one.
Yes.
But that's neither here nor there. You have a chance, 14th District. Get your stuff together.
Yep.
It's a scene from the Rick and Morty. Get all your stuff. Go down to the stuff store. Buy all your stuff. Get a stuff box. Put all your stuff in the box. Get the stuff together. Take it to a stuff museum and put it on display, but get your stuff together. You have a chance. Don't let us down.
There you go.
We are behind you, 14th District. We're behind you. I don't live there, but I have often been embarrassed by your current Congresswoman, and her turn of her face turn from heel to hero here has been loved by mainstream media everywhere. The View, the AJC. I heard the AJC is going to make her a contributor. Is that right?
Sounds like it.
That's incredible to me. That all you have to do is do the Jeff Duncan, and all of a sudden they love you. It's just fascinating.
It's right.
What is she going to do next, Buzz?
Well, so almost immediately, I think it was Punchbowl News said that the rumor in D.C. floating around was that she was going to run for governor. And I think there's a case to be made that might. And
I
be
will
what
make
she
that
did.
case.
Yes,
stay
Scott
tuned.
will make that case.
Buzz
in a
is
moment,
going to take the other side.
Yeah, but one other thing that the folks on the Commentary Magazine podcast, they all assume that she intends to follow the Candace Owens path to podcasting riches, which she has done in the past. I mean, that's kind of how she got known, was being a weirdo podcaster talking about Jewish space lasers and other conspiracies.
QAnon.
But she's kind of rebranded herself away from that. So my gut reaction, Scott, as soon as she announced, I thought she's running for Senate. That's what she wanted to do in the beginning. She wanted to run for Senate and was making moves to go do that until President Trump showed her the poll that showed that she would likely win the primary but get crushed in the general election. And the president asked her not to run, and she didn't. And that was the beginning of the break with Trump, right? And the beginning of her talk about all these men out to get her and all these Republican men who screw everything up. But another reason I think she might run for Senate is whatever campaign cash she has on hand can be used. She doesn't start from zero. So she's got some money, and she's got a national fundraising base that she can crank up and raise a bunch of money that goes right into those federal accounts that already exist. And all she's got to do, Mike Collins and Buddy Carter are competing for the MAGA lane. She's the most MAGA of the MAGAs. So that's my gut thinking.
Yeah, I definitely perceived sphincter pinching in several different races. And definitely, if you're Mike Collins right now, your Buddy Carter, you got to be like sweating. I definitely see why you make a strong argument, especially around the money side. That being said, I look at her behavior over the course of the last couple of months. She started traveling the state. She has made public comments that she's not impressed by our gubernatorial candidates. And I think that she really did want to run for governor against Burt Jones. And I think she thought she was going to have Trump's support in whatever she decided to do. But Trump had already committed his support to Burt Jones. And so she got her feelings hurt over that. And I think has driven a lot of her behavior over the last couple of months.
Yeah. Her feelings are definitely hurt. There's no doubt.
Yeah. And she was shown polling. And this came out. Trump told us that this came out. We had heard rumors of it, but he tweeted it or truthed it or social media'd it. And he said to us as Americans, I showed her the polling that she could not win. There's no path for her. She needs to stay where she is. And then he began to call her Marjorie Trader Green.
Yes.
Which
it got nasty.
It got real nasty. We talked about that in the previous podcast. So, but I think the real hint is in her farewell announcement, Unabomber length manifesto about her leaving that she posted on social media. And there she talks about how broken and dysfunctional Washington is and how it's an oligarchy. And, the rank and file members aren't really given the opportunity to pitch in on policy or otherwise, that sounds familiar to me. I feel that. I've experienced that in my own political public service. That being said, why would you want to go right back to Washington, D.C. if that's what you think Washington, D.C. is? And you also have the rumors swirling around you that you might run for governor. So if you are Burt Jones, maybe you're sweating a little more than Mike Collins and Buddy Carter.
If he hasn't already, the phone should have been ringing saying, "Hey, Marjorie, let's sit down and chat."
Yeah. I imagine that would go something like this. You're a man and I'm a woman, and I'm not going to talk to a man about my political ambitions.
Could be.
Scott,
you make a strong case. And one other thing I think that tilts in in your favor is, given that polling shows that she has a really good chance of winning a Republican primary, you're not in the Senate race. You do all that. You fight your way through the primary to get to John Ossoff sitting there with $1 gazillion and an entrenched incumbent in John Ossoff, right? There's no such incumbent waiting at the end of the primary on the Democratic side. There's a wide open field on the Democratic side, and a possibility that they nominate the leading candidate right now is a disastrously failed mayor of Atlanta,
right?
Who a lot of Atlantans don't even like, right? So it's definitely the general election is wide open if you're for whoever wins the Republican primary, and if you're Marjorie Taylor Greene, that might be more appealing.
Well, so what do you think, audience? Wherever you're listening, drop a comment. Tell us, what do you think Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to do next? Leave a comment on the blog or on YouTube or wherever you listen, whether it's Spotify, Amazon, wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're on all those platforms. Leave a comment. Tell us where you think Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to do. Is it going to be a podcast? She's going to run for a different office? And if so, which one? If you leave a comment, you'll be entered into our merch giveaway contest. Everybody who leaves a comment about anything at any point in time on any of our podcasts, on any of our platforms, gets access to one drawing per comment or one entrant per comment to get a free piece of merch. And so let us know. When we come back, we're going to talk about Jason Spencer's book.
Golden Retriever Rescue of Atlanta, GRRA, is an all-volunteer, tax-deductible charitable organization. They are dedicated to providing veterinary care, comprehensive evaluation, and foster and adoptive homes to golden and Labrador retrievers who are abandoned, mistreated, neglected, or left in shelters throughout Georgia. We encourage you to visit their website grra.com and help connect people and dogs that need each other in their lives. You truly can make this world a better place by helping find homes of gold for these golden-hearted pups.
one of the things that happens in politics is you're friends with somebody that 1 minute and then they kind of disappear. You might fight them on some things. You might be in the trench with them on others. And one of those individuals for me is Jason Spencer. Jason and I were pretty closely aligned. We worked on several really big, important things together. He was one of the first people I reached out to because when I got to the legislature, it appeared that he was a lot like me as far as how I saw the role of government. Um, because of the political alignment on a lot of those issues, we began working on things together. One of those things famously was our anti-Obamacare bills that started in 2013, ended up in the 2014 legislative session. Jason has written a book, and I didn't see Buzz Brockway's name in it at all.
No, it was not in there.
But I saw my name in it quite a bit. Not why I bought the book. I bought the book because I wanted to support my friend. I have not spoken to Jason since before he resigned. Very famously, Jason got Borated. Sacha Baron Cohen had a streak of several years where he had fooled prominent people, entertainers, politicians into thinking that they were sitting down for a very serious interview, and they were basically being punked the whole time. The first one in Georgia, I think, that got punked by Sacha was Bob Barr in the movie Borat, where he sat down for an interview and said, "I've brought you some cheese from my country." And Congressman Barr at the time took a bite of it, had it in his mouth, and he said, "Yeah, it came from the milk of my wife's tit."
Yes.
And Bob Barr is like, he just stops chewing. And there was a time way back in the day that I had another podcast. I was back in 2007 to 2009 ish. I did this podcast called Three Scotches, and Bob actually joined us on that podcast and told us that story and how he thought that they had been vetted and how thorough they were in covering their tracks to make it look like they were a legitimate film production company and that Borat was a real person and not a fictional character. And it wasn't until that moment where Borat, the character, tells him that this cheese he's eating was made from the milk of his wife's tit that he realized he had been pranked.
Yeah.
This happened to Jason Spencer.
Yep.
Different
and a
character.
lot of other people, right?
Yeah, and a lot of other people. But Jason Spencer was a sitting member of the legislature, and Jason was a lightning rod. He was a conservative lightning rod, and he had no qualms about getting involved in controversial issues beyond just the Obamacare thing. His brother, it's not written about in the book, but his brother was working for the Department of Education and got caught saying some pretty racist things and lost his job. So Jason was tangentially connected to that. There were other comments that were made on social media about Confederate statues and memorials being ripped down by Black Lives Matter. And Jason tried to dissuade those people in an inartful way that ended up catching national headlines. And he'd also brought a piece of legislation that required photo ID to actually show your face. So if you had a religious exemption for like a burqa, you were not allowed to have that as your photo. You would have to actually show your face on your photo ID. And he writes about
caught a lot of flack for that bill.
Yeah. So a lot of that is in there. When he got exposed in the Sacha Baron Cohen's Showtime special, he ended up resigning in disgrace. And Jason is naturally a salty guy. I don't think he would object to me describing him that way. At one point, he called critics of one of his pieces of legislation myrmidons. He had a flowery way of describing situations.
You're right. That was the
Hidden Predator Act, I believe.
His Hidden Predator Bill, which was an important piece of legislation.
It absolutely was. And he writes all about that. He writes all about it.
Yes. And I was a co-sponsor of that bill, and I was proud of Jason's work on that, but it brought justice to a lot of people. But in the political machinations, right, he announced that he was good. The next morning, the bill was getting hung up in the Senate. He announced that he would be holding a press conference the next day to expose who King George was in this scenario, who Benedict Arnold, all the Benedict Arnolds and all the Myrmidons who were allied against this awesome bill, and got a lot of attention. He ended up not having the press conference because the bill started moving again.
Right, because he threatened to expose them, but in the book, he actually does expose them. So
Yes.
he didn't at the time, but he does here.
Yes.
Dozens of names appear in this book. Not all of them.
Yes.
Not all of them in a negative light. I'm
Right.
happy to report he had very positive things to say about me and the other folks who helped him along the way with his anti-Obamacare stuff. But I'm going to give you some time here too to reflect on what your takeaway is.
Yeah.
And why people should absolutely, if you're a political guy in Georgia or nut or nerd, guy or girl, go buy this book. It's a quick and easy read, and it's fascinating. He's a great writer.
It's 300 pages. It looks like a little less in the hard copy. I got the Kindle version because I was about to hop on a plane, and I thought, oh, this will be fun. Fun to read as I fly over the beautiful United States of America. But it was a quick read, yeah. And look, I thought it was well written, engaging. He does a good job. He teases in the beginning of the book what the book ends with, which is, unfortunately, the infamous moment that you described. And then his description of that, I thought was, I don't want to spoil it for people who might buy it, but Sacha Baron Cohen is a skilled media guy and manipulator and fooled some very, very smart people and duped them and made them look like fools. And Jason's one of them. And as you read through that and the events leading up to that and the state of mind he was in when that happened, you can absolutely see why an otherwise pretty savvy guy got tricked. And the devastation that it caused for him personally, it's heartbreaking. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And I hope, Jason, it's a scar that Jason will carry the rest of his life, as he says. And it just, bad things between him and his now ex-wife and his children. And that's heartbreaking as well, because it's pain inflicted upon them too.
Sure.
And Scott, I'll just say it. I hate Sacha Baron Cohen because this kind of entertainment at the expense of other people, viciously at the expense of other people, that's not entertainment. That's cruel. And I know, other stuff, he was hilarious in Talladega Nights, a movie, the name slips in mind. There's a kind of a kid's movie that my children enjoyed when they were young that he was in. He's a good actor. All that's fine. But
he's such a good actor that on the fly, he will fool you into believing that it's somebody different that you're talking to.
Yeah. But no, I encourage, yes, some folks mentioned in the book will not like how they're depicted. No doubt about it. But I imagine those folks already know that
so there are a couple...
they and Jason, they didn't get along with Jason already, and they won't be surprised to learn that Jason still doesn't like them.
Right. Which brings me to something that I learned about by reading this, and that is that Charlize Byrd, my current state rep, who was defeated in a primary by Michael Caldwell, who's now the mayor of Woodstock. But Michael and I served 8 years together, and we were close, very, very close. We shared office suite right next to each other. We represented the same county. We were ideologically very similar, but it was enlightening to me to learn that Charlize was his mentor, because Charlize's view of politics in the Gold Dome has left her fingerprint all over Jason Spencer's political career. And that's, and I'll share a personal anecdote about Representative Byrd. When I decided to run for office, I was running as a pretty hard right candidate in a pretty hard right district against a pretty hard right incumbent. And so she called me up and she asked me to go to coffee as a candidate. She's an elected official at this point. It's 2012. And we're sitting at a Starbucks coffee. I remember where we were. I remember where we were sitting there. And because what she said to me stuck with me the entire time I was in office, which was, if you actually try to govern the way that you are campaigning, they're going to come for you. And they're going to relegate you to be irrelevant and non-consequential, and you'll never get any bills passed, and none of your measures will ever see a committee hearing. You'll never move anything. And the entire time I was actually in office, I had her in the back of my mind, and sometimes in the front of my mind. I could hear her voice telling me this. And I adopted the Buzz Brockway, Sam Teasley model of politics. It's what I call it, because you guys were, I didn't have a mentor. I came in late, that, there was no mentorship, but I gravitated to the people that I was aligned with ideologically. And that was you and Sam Teasley. And specifically Sam was very encouraging of, look, if you're going to be effective here, you're going to have to invest in relationships. And so I took that to heart, and I got to know all of these legislators from all around the state on a personal level. I would go hunting with them. I'd go fishing with them. I would go to holiday parties at their house. And I invested in becoming friends outside of the Gold Dome. And so that made it easier for me that when Speaker Ralston decided I needed to be in the doghouse, which was almost the entire time I was a state rep, very few days, the days I was in the doghouse versus out of the doghouse greatly outnumbered the days I was out of the doghouse. Because I had friends, I got bills passed every year. Was my name at the top of that bill? No. But I would amend my bills onto other bills. I would have them inserted in a conference committee reports at the last minute, and it would become an ornament on a Christmas tree type of situation. And I learned that from one of the characters in the book, Ed Lindsay.
Yeah.
And that's because I brought Ed Lindsay into the fold when we wanted to try to get something against Obamacare done. And Ed decided he was the majority whip when I got elected, and he wanted to run for Congress in the newly formed the congressional district, which was an open seat. And a bunch of candidates ended up running for that. Ed came to one of our fundraisers for Michael Caldwell and I, and we went to dinner afterwards. And I told him, I was like, look, everybody that you want to vote for you is to your right. You're going to have a better agenda than your record. This anti-Obamacare thing is your answer. We want you to be part of the team. We can't do it without you. And Ed was like, well, you guys are pretty far to my right. And I was like, yeah, but we're the ones who get to vote for you. So look around. It's me. It's Michael Caldwell. It's Bruce Thompson. It's before us, Chip Rogers, Sean Jurgensen, Charlie Spurd. You are in a situation where you're going to have to move to the right. And he came on board. That's also in the book. But Ed taught me how to massage the process through the Obamacare stuff, through all of that, of the political machinations of getting that bill actually signed into law. And it was Jason's bill. Jason was the lead sponsor, but it was me and Caldwell and Stover were the other three, the primary sponsors. Weren't you also a co-sponsor on that?
I think so, but
I know Kevin Cook was.
I might not have been in the top, probably wasn't in the top 6, because
right.
You guys, Jason especially, strategically chose members, and that's why Ed, y'all strategically recruited.
But without Ed Lindsay, we wouldn't have gotten it done. I mean, that's really and you said there will be people who are in the book who are not happy about how they're portrayed. Ed would potentially be one of those, but I know Ed Lindsay enough to know that he would laugh this off.
Yeah, it wouldn't come as a surprise to him, I don't think. But
no, it wouldn't come as a surprise.
that
Jason
I don't think
didn't
hold him in high esteem. So.
Yeah, I don't think Ed would care one iota. But another thing that jumped out
he might even laugh at the colorful descriptions because, look, peppered throughout this book, right? The tone, the language, it's classic Jason Spencer. It is kind of over the top. Callbacks to, as we mentioned before, ancient Greece, King George, revolutionary, all of that stuff is in there. And that's part of what makes it an enjoyable read.
Absolutely. So when I left office, Charlie Spurd decided that she wanted to run for office, for the same office that she'd held before. Michael Caldwell was retiring the same time as me. And so I called up Charlie's to offer her my perspective since she was gone. I never got to serve with Charlie Spurd, but I wanted her to know what I had learned and tell her what you told me back in 2012 was absolutely true, but this is how I mitigated it. And this is how I was an effective legislator, in spite of the fact that I voted no a lot, in spite of the fact that I was a firebrand, in spite of the fact that I was at odds with my own leadership often. And and virtually every member of leadership at the time would have told you, I like Scott. His politics aren't my politics, but I like Scott. Nobody says that about Charlie's Bird. Nobody. So I called Charlie's and said, let me tell you how I did it. I told her about how I went about making friends. And her response to me was, and I quote, I'm not going down there to make friends. And my response to her was, quote, it will be easier if you do. She's never shown any inclination to become friends with people. She only wants to throw daggers. And it just clarified for me why Jason sort of had this mentality of, it's, if you're not with me, you're against me. And if you're not with me on this, you must be against me all the time.
Yeah.
And that came through in the book.
And he describes, he sets the scene of how he got energized to run for office. It was the Tea Party, beginnings of the Tea Party era.
Yeah.
And if you remember that time, I mean, there were a bunch of us that, I was at that first gigantic rally that the Tea Party had in Atlanta at the Capitol. There were
So was I.
10,000 people there.
I was one of
10,000
them.
people there. And Sean Hannity
Yep.
was emceeing it. And John Rich from Big and Rich was singing some By God country music. I mean, it was, there was a lot of energy around. And I didn't stick with the Tea Party, because it kind of veered away from the original part of it, which was fiscal concerns about, because that was Jeff Santelli's big thing when this whole thing got kicked off, was our deficit is out of control. We're about to do this gigantic bailout of banks. And, so anyway, that is the soup in which Jason Spencer and many of us others were elected in.
Yeah, I was a Tea Party champion. Yeah, there were mailers sent out saying, this is our Tea Party guy. I didn't send them out, but there were others who sent them out. This is the Tea Party champion.
Yeah. Debbie Dooley never accepted me as a Tea Party person. She said I was in the hip pocket of David Ralston, which I'm sure David Ralston would be surprised to learn, would have been surprised to learn that.
But there's also insights into the brilliance of Jason Spencer's ability to manipulate things in there and it's brilliant. It's freaking brilliant. There's a line. So one day I go to see the speaker and he's not happy with me, which is most of the time I went to go see him. And I'm sitting there with him and he starts out by saying this so-called conscience caucus.
Yeah. Where the heck did that come from?
I'm like, what is that? He goes, what do you mean? You know what it is. I was like, I've never heard that phrase in my life. What are you talking about? Now, in the book, Jason talks about how he intentionally set it up. Like he was the originator of where the conscience caucus came from and how he had given this line to a reporter because he knew that would be the line that would get printed.
Yes.
And read the book.
To tweak leadership and Speaker Ralston trigger them, so to speak.
Yeah, he was intentionally poking them by putting that into the political atmosphere, that there was an informal conscience caucus. It caused me problems because David Ralston thought I was part of it. And I'm like, I've never even heard that phrase. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, it'd be easier to Representative Turner if we could have an honest discussion. I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I'm telling I've never been to a meeting of the Conscience Caucus.
Yeah, I don't think there ever was. There was no Conscience Caucus. There was never a meeting of it because there wasn't one.
No, the closest thing you could get would be the Appeal to Heaven guys, right? Which we were all part of, but that was not the Conscience Caucus. And
right, but you know what?
We called ourselves.
Right, when I had forgotten all that, and when I read that, I thought the stuff clicked on my mind because when a group of us started wearing the Appeal to Heaven pin, and we weren't, again, that was not an official caucus of any sort. It was just a group of legislators who felt motivated, inspired by the story of that flag, of George Washington's pine tree flag, to wear that. There were immediately people suspicious that we were plotting to topple the leadership. numerous lobbyists tell me this, and other members tell me this. What are you guys up to? Nothing. It's just, our conscience, so to speak, thought that this would be a good idea to try to hold us true to the things. This is why I wore it, to hold us true to what I believed are the reasons that I was elected, and the kind of legislator I wanted to be was to remain true to the principles that I espoused when I ran and that I believed in. But that's, I don't know, reading that, it just kind of clicked for me. Okay, that's where that came from.
Yeah.
It probably started, Spencer floated that out to Tweak Leadership, who was already, as a lot of leadership entities are, they're suspicious of, are we in control of the caucus at all times? And here's a group of us wearing this little pin and voting no a lot of the time. It suddenly starts floating around that we're, trying to build up the necessary political capital to topple Speaker Ralston. That was never in the cards, and never our desire.
Nope.
To never, yeah. So
at any rate, the book, again, it's called Citizen Legislator, Jason Spencer, an insider account of pathological politics in the Peach State. Highly recommend. Available on Amazon and other places you buy books.
It's the closest thing you'll ever get to a tell-all book about the era in which me and many others were elected.
Yeah.
And Scott and a whole bunch of others.
Yeah. I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to write a book or not. I'm not dead yet, so no promises it'll be the last one you ever read. But there were things in there that when he described them, I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that. Or there were meetings where he walks in and he describes the meetings, and I'm like, oh yeah, he nailed it. Like,
well, Scott, how many pages of footnotes at the end? I mean, there are.
Yeah, he brought the receipts.
Well documented. And I thought, this dude kept every email, kept every link to everything that he had ever done.
There is one last thing I'm going to say about it, right? There was a part about it that did break my heart. And it's this. I did call for Jason to resign from the legislature, and I felt it was necessary considering the fallout and the level of attention. I had gotten some constituents back home asking me, isn't that the guy that you work with all the time? And so I felt like I had to distance myself at the time he was going through that. But I left him a voicemail, and I left him a text. And this is what I said to him. I said, look, I know you're going through it. If you need to get away, you can come. I want to be there for you. If you need a place, you need somebody to talk to. I don't know if he felt betrayed I don't even know if he knew that I had done it. I just made a Facebook post, and some of our friends got mad at me for making that Facebook post as well.
Yeah.
But in the world of politics, that wasn't a personal thing. I've always liked Jason. I did not always agree with his methodologies. Clearly, I didn't subscribe to the Charlize Bird model or mentality of what the Gold Dome is like. He clearly did more than I did. We took two different paths on that. And today, when I read that book, the section of the book where he talks about the Sacha Baron Cohen thing causing him to become homeless, that's what really broke my heart, because if I had known that, he would have had a place in my house. I would have put him up until he got back on his feet, with no questions asked. And that's the one thing it did break my heart. And I don't know if he even got the message at this point.
Yeah, I sent him a text as well. I didn't call him and resign. I don't hold it against anybody who did. I didn't do that because I thought there's only a few months. At that point in the calendar, there was only a few months, maybe less than that, maybe weeks before his term would end. And I thought, what's the point of that and forcing special elections, all this kind of stuff? There were not going to be any more, meetings. That just been constituent services that Jason would have to engage in. But I was thinking, I can't imagine, and the book helped provide some color for this. I couldn't imagine what it would be like to be just embarrassed in front of the entire world. This was at a level that we can't comprehend. This is not just a little social media firestorm. This was an enormous worldwide. People around the world heard of this.
Right.
And the shame that he must have felt, that he describes in the book, and the embarrassment to his wife, Melanie. Melanie is a sweetheart. I'm so sad that he and Melanie and things didn't end well for them, and that Melanie was humiliated through no fault of her own, and their children, and that that's something that's a wound that they will carry forever because the internet is forever. And Sacha Baron Cohen just racks up the cash and laughs his way on to whatever next thing he's going to do, and that it just infuriates me. I sent him a text, and I never heard back, and in the book I understand why. He just shut everything off in an attempt to try to get some peace. And anyway,
If you're a Georgia political nerd, this is the book. This is the book you want to ask for Christmas. I'm telling you, it's worth every penny. And you can get a paperback copy. You don't have to get the hardback back, or even cheaper. You can get
the Kindle is pretty cheap.
Yeah, it's like $6 or something. It's at any rate. Jason, we're glad that you wrote the book. If you're listening, and I remember some instances slightly differently, but largely I think he got it right as far as his portrayal of some events. Although I don't share his opinion of some of the people that he's pretty salty about. Because I adopted this mentality of, I keep my friends permanent and my enemies temporary, and we may be fighting each other on this, but I'm going to work with you on something else. Yeah, it's not how Jason looked at the world. So. Well, we're running long, so I'm going to cut the agenda to one big topic down, and that's Pete Skandalakis, the head of the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia, had been tasked with finding another prosecutor to replace Fani Willis after she was removed by the courts, saying that she had basically screwed the pooch in so many words and in so many other ways, that she was not going to be allowed by the courts to continue to prosecute Donald Trump and the alternate slate of electors, and it fell on Pete Skandalakis, when she was disqualified, to go and find another prosecutor. Now, we have told you in the past that there's only one prosecutor in Georgia that really wanted to prosecute this case, and that was Fani Willis. And we predicted along the way that Fani Willis would not be allowed to continue this case and that they wouldn't find somebody else. And lo and behold, that's what happened. So it fell to Pete. Go find another prosecutor. We had a precedent. This happened when Fani Willis was not allowed to prosecute Burt Jones because why? She had screwed the pooch, created the odor of mendacity. I love that phrase. There are candles now. You can buy a candle with the odor of mendacity label on it. Smells a lot like vanilla. That's just me, though. I've seen some of those at the Capitol, sitting behind legislators in their offices, the odor of mendacity candles. Man. But she's gone. He has to go find somebody else, and there is no prosecutor in the state that wants to touch this case. So he has to either decide to prosecute it himself or drop it. He had done the same thing with Burt Jones. He dropped the case against Burt Jones, so it was pretty easy for him to justify. And he wrote a very long reasoning, a statement of why he decided to drop the case. Some of it was simply there wasn't a crime committed. There's legal precedent saying that what these people did was perfectly legal. There was a court reporter in the room when the alternate slate of electors led by David Schaefer met. And the court reporting, he quotes the court record or the court recorder. He quotes that person who took the notes, where David Schaefer is saying, we're only doing this because it preserves our legal rights. And we're not trying to overturn the election. This is only going to be used in the instance that it is found that we have to have had a meeting and that there is an alternate slate of electors. That's all in the record. And it was investigated. And you guys who listen to this podcast very often know that David Schaefer and Josh McCoon and those guys are no longer my friends. Like David Schaefer was never really my friend. I'm not going to defend David Schaefer unless he deserves to be defended. And in this case, he didn't do anything wrong. So, and neither did any of the alternate electors. And so Pete actually says that in there's no crime here. There is some other criminal activity that he said probably deserved to be in a different venue, specifically Cobb County, around the intimidation of election poll workers. We had that instance, the the two ladies who were accused of bringing out suitcases full of ballots when those were actually legitimate ballot boxes, not suitcases full of ballots. They were intimidated. There have been lawsuits around that. Rudy Giuliani has had a judgment placed against him because of his comments around that. He talks about that as being a different venue, not Fulton County. And then there's the Coffee County stuff as well that he said maybe, and there's some other things he said, maybe a federal case, but not a state case. He dropped it. Buzz. You have made this point to me also about a new law that was passed this year and what happens next.
Oh, yeah. So former senator, now Treasurer of the United States of America, Brandon Beach, introduced a bill, and it went through the legislature, signed into law by Governor Kemp, that would allow the people involved who are accused in this case, from President Trump on down, to attempt to recover their legal fees that they expended. The AJC estimates that to be around $10 million. The taxpayers of Fulton County would be on the hook for that if these folks attempt to pursue that, which I don't. Why wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
Why would you be out of pocket for this? So yeah, that's, in addition to Fani Willis, first of all, way over prosecuting. I mean, I've said numerous times, to me, there are two questions that need to be answered legally. Did the infamous phone call that precipitated all this between President Trump and Secretary of State Raffensperger, did that cross the line or not? I don't know I don't know the legal answer to that. That was smart lawyers have to, prosecutors need to figure that out. And then the fiasco down in Coffee County, alleged fiasco down in Coffee County, where the elections official allegedly allowed Sidney Powell's team to obtain the source code of the voting machines. Was that criminal or not? I don't really care about all the rest. And those things I thought were necessary to answer, but she wasn't interested in that. She wanted to grab all the gold, and she wound up with nothing. But there's that. And then if you're a resident of Fulton County, you might be on the hook for $10 million in these legal fees. All the expense around this case, which has just fallen flat, millions of dollars spent there. And then the whole YSL case, RICO case, that came crashing down this year as well, with people are dead and nobody's going to jail because of the incompetence of Fani Willis's district attorney office. So just an all-around embarrassment for the people of Fulton County.
Really, it is. And not only that, with her hiring her boyfriend, Nathan Wade, to be the special ADA on this case and funding him through their civil asset forfeiture fund and draining that fund to practically zero. There's so much money that has been thrown into this. And we've been telling you from the beginning, I don't know, we're going to get a negative comment from that guy who says, you guys are trying to steal the election. There was never a case, man. There was never a case.
Right.
And this prosecutor is a grandstander. She didn't do it for justice. She did it for her own political ambition. That's why she saw an opportunity,
you know what?
A politically ambitious moment, and seized it and took it too far, too fast, and without the competence needed to actually do it. On top of the fact that there was no freaking case to begin with.
Yeah. This could have been investigated and adjudicated and wrapped up within a year, maybe a year and a half. So mid 2022, this thing should have been over.
Right.
But she went one way or the other. It should have been over.
Also,
3 years ago.
Earlier we told the 14th Congressional District to get their stuff together in a box and just, get it together. Fulton County, it's time to find a new prosecutor. Will you please get your stuff together? Get it all together, put it in a box. Make sure it's just all together. And find yourself a new prosecutor, because this one is not a competent prosecutor.
She ran on a anti-corruption platform against Paul Howard, who had all sorts of stuff, accusations swirling around him. As far as we know, Paul Howard never hired his girlfriend to run a big case. So
Yeah, it's hard to be anti-corruption when you're showing that you are okay with corruption so long as it benefits those you like.
yes,
What else you got, Buzz? We're a little bit long, so
I think that's enough. I think we've
yeah, we went a little bit long. Thank you for listening to Peach Pun of the podcast. We're so glad you did. Our Peach Pun of the podcast is brought to you by our Patreons. If you'd like to join them on our Patreon list, we call them the people who rock. You can head on over to patreon.com/peachpundit. We'll add you to this list of fine people: Tony West and our friends at Americans for Prosperity, Amy Davis, 3 anonymous Patreons, one of which wants you to know more about the Alzheimer's Association: Bethany Ballard, Bo Brennan, Colin Martin, Daniel Shaver, Emmanuel Hernandez, Jeff Cobble, Greer Howard, Hank Burnham, Harrison Edwards, James Hall, Jacqueline Harn, Jason Bankston, John Vestal, Jordan Reed, JT Marshburn, Justin Wright, Ken Pullen, Kenyatta Mitchell, Lawton Sack, Mike Buchert, Reed Powell, Ryan Graham, Ryan Purvis, Sam Thomas, Sergio Ortega, Shannon Ferguson, and Stuart Wilkinson. Thank you to each and every one of our Patreons. You've been listening to Peach Pun the Podcast, which is Buzz Brockway, me, Scott Turner. All the music you hear is original by Jason Pye, and it is owned and published by me, Scott Turner. Leave your comments, get into that drawing, and we'll catch you next time.
go Jackets.